Great things He has done, great things He has done, great things. Bless His holy name. He has done great things. He has done great things. He has done great things. Praise His holy name. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, and all that is within me. Bless the Lord, my soul. Bless the Lord, my soul. And all that is within me. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, and all that is within me, bless His holy. Oh, bless the Lord, oh, my soul, and all that is within
Ladies and gentlemen, let's rise to welcome the Mokgoro family and the President of the Republic. We may remain standing for the national anthem.
Israel. wat die kruis en aanvolgen. Sounds are called to come together, and united we shall stand. Let us give and strive for freedom in South Africa, our land.
Thank you. You may be seated. The Mokgoro family, the President of the Republic of South Africa, Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa, Speaker of the National Assembly, the Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa, Premier of Gauteng Province, Honorable Ministers present and Deputy Ministers, MECs, members of the Judiciary and the Legal Fraternity, members of Parliament, members of the Diplomatic Corps, executive mayors and mayors, leaders of political parties, religious leaders, leaders in the business sector, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the special official funeral service of Justice Yvonne Mokgoro. I will start with a seminal work quotation from S. versus Mokonyana, where she said, although South Africans have a history of deep divisions characterized by strife and conflict, one shared value and ideal that runs like a golden thread across cultural line is the value of Ubuntu. Believe this is well acclaimed across the globe, and as we lay here to rest today, we welcome everyone to this special ceremony. We will now thank you. We'll request everyone to stand up for the body to be coming in. Thank you. We may be seated. We will now receive an opening prayer. Father M.J. Matsao.
Let us pray. Father God of all consolation, in your unending love and mercy for us, you turn the darkness of death into the dawn of new life. You show compassion to your people in their sorrow. Be our refuge and our strength to lift us up from this darkness of this grief to the peace and light of your presence. Your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, by dying for us, he conquered death, and by rising again, he restored life. May we then go forward eagerly to meet him after our life on earth, be reunited with our brothers and sisters, where every tear will be wiped away. We ask this through Christ our Lord.
Ladies and gentlemen, the program directors for the day is myself. My name is Ronald Lamula. I'm the Minister for Justice and Correctional Services, and Justice Liana Thoron, a Justice of the Constitutional Court. We will now receive the welcoming remarks by the Premier of Gauteng, Mr. Panyaza Alisufi.
Thank you so much, Program Director, Minister Ozi Lamola, members of the Mokgoro family, His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, ministers and deputy ministers, Chief Justice, Deputy Chief Justice, justices of the Constitutional Court, members of the legal fraternity, members of the diplomatic corps, the leadership of the church, leadership representing various political parties, leadership representing business, leadership representing organs of civil society and other formations. Fellow mourners, I'm assigned the most difficult task to welcome you at the funeral of a person I admired, a person I loved and cherished, Justice Yvonne Mokgoro. Never did it ever, I imagined, never did it ever cross my mind that we'll gather like this in the company of a head of state, justices, and various leaders without the presence of Judge Mokgoro. Never did I imagine that I'll be assigned to this task to say my goodbyes to a very special citizen of our country. Never did I imagine that I'll be assigned this task to say my goodbyes to an outstanding South African, a pathfinder, a caring person, a social activist. To this, I would like to thank our President Cyril Ramaphosa and the South African government for the honors they have bestowed on you, but most importantly, for this special funeral. Thank you so much, President. This is indeed a befitting order. May I continue, Program Director, to say my goodbyes. It's tough, it's difficult, but I guess I have no option, no matter how painful it is. Let me give it a try. Goodbye, Mama. Goodbye, my mentor. Goodbye, my African pioneer. Goodbye, my hero. Robala ka kgotso, mina nar. Go well. Thank you.
We will now welcome Ms. Lwando Kaso for the reading of the obituary.
How does the daughter of a washerwoman and a railway worker from the most arid hinterlands of South Africa grow up to be an African pioneer? How do we measure her greatness when no one has ever measured how much a heart can hold? And how do we find language big enough to honor our beloved Justice Yvonne Mokgoro? Born on 19 October 1950 in Khalishiwe Township, Kimberley, Northern Cape, as the second of Joseph and Khoitsimang Baffel's 9 children. In their home, they lived by the words of always do your best, always be yourself, and always work hard. These words became the wisdom that defined her unprecedented journey, an unfathomable journey even for the most wildly optimistic. Justice Mokgoro's mother worked for a white family in the suburbs. She used to tell the story that around 16 years old, after doing her homework, she would venture into this other world where white people lived, where they lived more richer, better, and more abundantly. There, she would help her mother finish the washing and the ironing. It is this experience that awakened a lifelong search to the answer for the hard question of why do they live like this and we do not? Encouraging their daughter's clear-eyedness for truth, her parents were honest about the dichotomy between blacks and whites in apartheid South Africa. It is during these conscious raising conversations where her father revealed that at 16 years old, he had been unfairly jailed for 6 months at Johannesburg's oldest and most notorious prison, the Old Fort. They couldn't have known that years later, Justice Mokgoro and 10 others appointed by President Nelson Mandela would convert that prison into the home of democratic South Africa's highest court. Justice Mokgoro matriculated at St. Boniface High School in 1917, after which she enrolled for a teaching degree at the University of Bophuthatswana, now Northwest University. Her matriculation and university enrollment were the first in her family, the first of significant firsts to come. It would be her undoubting innate sense of justice that would propel her towards a career in law. In 1970, she was arrested for objecting to the unfair arrest of a young black man by the apartheid police. She was just passing by, but she made the life-altering decision to stop and to intercede on behalf of this young man. And for that, she found herself in the back of a police van. It is the Pan-Africanist leader and lawyer Robert Sobukwe, who had been banished to Khalishiwe after his release from Robben Island, who secured her release from jail. As lawyer and client walked home, a young Justice Mokgoro was frustrated at the lack of lawyers in her community. She said to her elder, "Where are the lawyers? Where are the men? Even the ones who are off to study at Fort Hare, they're not studying law." Sobukwe looked at her and said, "No, no, no. Do not ask where are the men. Where are the women? There is no law preventing women from studying law. Let's try with you. Let's start with you." It was that response and challenge that redirected Justice Mokgoro's life, forgoing teaching and instead pursuing her LLB and LLM degrees at the University of Bophuthatswana. Thereafter, she was appointed as a maintenance officer and public prosecutor in the Mabato Magistrates Court. Despite her demanding career, the role of mother and her commitment to her family was central to her life. Together with her husband, Job Mokgoro, whom she married in 1970, they nurtured a family together for 40 years. Her parenting, not only of her 5 children, but children from extended family, revolved around the ideas of justice and integrity, the same ideals she upheld in her work. Her enduring legacy, her ability to care for her work and for her family with an unparalleled grace, illustrating that one's commitment to justice starts at home. Justice Mokgoro returned to her desire to teach when she was appointed as a lecturer in the University of Bophuthatswana's law school. In 1990, she made the difficult decision to leave her young family and her work to pursue another LLM at the University of Pennsylvania in the United States. Upon her return, she could not have anticipated the burgeoning horizon, not just of her country, but of her own life. The Constitutional Court of South Africa was established by the Interim Constitution of 1993, a product of almost impossible negotiations between the apartheid regime and the liberation movement. The wisdom was that if South Africa is to change, it needs a new court untainted by history. This constitution took us to our historic elections in 1994. Following Nelson Mandela's election as president, one of his first duties was the appointment of the first 11 people to fill the seats of the new court, the guardian of a new South Africa. At the time, out of nearly 150 judges, only 1 was a woman and only 2 were people of color. There was no black African woman in South Africa's judiciary. Justice Mokgoro admitted to an initial reluctance when her colleagues proposed nominating her to the court. Fortunately for us, fortunately for history, she relented when a persistent colleague echoed the same sentiments of Sobukwe years earlier. No, 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 we have to start with you. Justice Mokgoro was urged not to sit it out, and she did not. Her nomination culminated in the then President of the Constitutional Court, Arthur Chaskelson, informing her of her appointment. The first black woman in history appointed as a judge and the first black woman to the new Constitutional Court of South Africa. On 14 February 1995, in a public ceremony, the 11 judges were sworn into office by President Nelson Mandela, with Justice Mokgoro making the symbolic choice, a first, to take her oath in Setswana, her mother tongue. In the span of her 15-year term on the court, Justice Mokgoro participated in 305 judgments, writing 19 leading judgments and 9 dissents. She contributed to and authored landmark judgments abolishing the death penalty, widening access to social welfare, making a case for restorative instead of retributive justice, and widely upholding human rights protections. Out of all of her judicial interventions, the one that earned her worldwide recognition was her introduction and entrenchment of the African value of Ubuntu as a legal principle. Scholars around the world have heralded Justice Mokgoro for operationalizing Ubuntu as an interpretational tool against which all laws, all public and private conduct should be scrutinized, affirming the sophistication of African values which for so long had been denigrated by colonialism and apartheid. Justice Mokgoro was more than a judge. She was the faithful translator and interlocutor between the people and the laws that govern them, always ensuring that the unprotected, the most vulnerable were a priority, thereby giving the most expansive meaning to the two most important words of our Constitution, we and everyone. She retired from the court in 2009. Although she was no longer on the bench, she did not retire from her life of purpose. She continued her life of service through chairing commissions of inquiry, teaching, steering organizations, speaking, writing in furtherance of our Constitution. Throughout her career of close to 40 years, she empowered generations of South African women and beyond. Although her pursuit of justice was born out of an act of violence by the apartheid government, her life shows us that we need not be hardened by violence, but rather, in the words of South African poet Dennis Brutus, we can serve as proof that tenderness does indeed survive. Judge, we have lost you at a time where the world feels so unanchored and so unsafe. May your work, may your example serve, may it be instructional to us on how we come to ground and how we summon the courage to always act with humanity. Justice Yvonne Mokgoro passed away on 9 May 2024. She is survived by 5 children, 6 grandchildren, and 2 siblings. There is no language big enough to honor you, but we will persist in trying. Your love and tenderness will abide with South Africa for years to come. Moya wa gago o robale ka kagiso.
Thank you very much for the obituary. We will now receive a musical tribute from the Tswane Gospel Choir, Kisikile Ki Jesu, and then Justice Theron will come thereafter. Thank you.
Ki siki lwenki cheso ki dutsi hoe hena fumensa haika cheno ki yaha tulu kisiki lweke cheso ki
Ramaphosa, Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa, Speaker of the National Assembly, the Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa, Premier of Gauteng Province, Honorable Ministers present, Deputy Ministers, MECs, my colleagues from the Judiciary and the Legal Fraternity, Members of Parliament, members of the Diplomatic Corps, executive mayors and mayors, leaders of political parties, religious leaders, leaders in the business sector, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We're here to pay tribute to and honor the life of a mother, a grandmother, a sister, an aunt, a colleague, and to many like me, a teacher and a mentor whose legacy will live on for a lifetime. We know Justice Mokgoro was passionate about human rights. She was passionate about the rights of the vulnerable. And I will call upon Mr. Mark Haywood, who has worked with her for more than 20 years in this field of where she was able to express her care and make an improvement in our society. Mr. Mark Haywood.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation to say a few words this morning. It's a great privilege to remember and reflect on the life of Justice Yvonne Mokgoro. I'd like to start by expressing my condolences, love, and respect to Justice Mokgoro's family, friends, colleagues, and fellow judges. I wish I could say that I had been a close friend or colleague of Yvonne's, but I was only an acquaintance. I first set eyes on Justice Mokgoro during my early encounters as a human rights activist with the Constitutional Court around issues to do with the HIV/AIDS epidemic and the case that was brought to the Constitutional Court by the Treatment Action Campaign in particular. That was in 2002. Even then, her compassion for the most marginalized and discriminated was evident just seeing her sitting on the bench. I can still picture the way Justice Mokgoro would sit in court. Even at a distance, you could see her eyes ablaze, a sense of concern emanating from her bodily posture and her constant attentiveness to the issues before her. After that, I was the fortunate beneficiary of an occasional conversation, often rushed, usually in passing. But during and after every meeting, I felt her warmth, I felt her greatness, and I felt that I had been in the presence of a wonderful human and South African. As a result, Justice Mokgoro inspired me. In particular, she inspired me and many others, I believe, in our shared mission to make our South Africa equal, just, and fair. That was her power. It was a rare power that came from beauty, humility, and a gentle but infectious cordiality. Yvonne was a judge of the highest standing and integrity, and she left a fine jurisprudence. Individually, and as a member of a collective. However, my sense of what marked her out was not just her fine judicial reasoning, but that for her the South African Constitution was an instruction not just about law, but about life and about living. The Constitution was an ethical code, and it was an ethical code that she lived. My views are shared by everybody else who knew and worked with her. Justice Edwin Cameron told me, quote, "She resolutely fought for the underdog, the weak, the marginalized, and the impoverished. Her humane legacy is deeply embedded in our jurisprudence." Professor Thuli Madonsela said to me, "She's credited with having convinced the majority of her Constitutional Court colleagues to embrace Ubuntu as implicit in the value of human dignity in the death penalty abolishing case known as State v. Makwanyane. In her personal interactions, she epitomized Ubuntu in the ways she looks out for all, particularly those who are marginalized." Yvonne Mokgoro was a wonderful black South African woman, amongst the greatest. Her life was rich, meaningful, accomplished, and full of good purpose. She kept her humanity and her human touch, her care and her compassion, even when she was elevated to the greatest heights of responsibility in society. At a time when human rights are under threat across the globe, at a time when public leadership is often associated with dishonesty, with division, with hatred, with deceit, I believe that the best tribute we can pay to Justice Yvonne Mokgoro is to seek to live up to her values, her vision, and to work as hard as we can to keep hope and the constitutional promise alive. Yvonne, Justice Mokgoro, thank you. I will certainly strive to do that. Thank you.
Justice Yvonne Mokgoro leaves an indelible mark as a teacher, as an academic, as a professor, and in training the next generation. She spoke at the Sulplikis University's Women's Month. She delivered a lecture there in 2022. And she sounded a harsh warning about the effects of gender-based violence on our society. And I quote, she said, "If we don't wake up as a nation and rid ourselves of the attitude and tendency that allows us to kill women and children, exploiting their vulnerability as we please and because we can, we will miss the boat and the opportunity to reach our full potential and take our rightful place among the nations of the world." And to speak to us more about Justice Yvonne Mokgoro's involvement in Sulpilaki University, I call upon my brother-in-law and the Chancellor of Sulpilaki University, Justice Stephen Majid.
Thank you. Program Directors, Minister Lamola and Justice Theron, members of the Mokgoro family, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa, President Ramaphosa, Honorable Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa, Justice Raymond Zondo, Deputy Chief Justice of South Africa, Justice Mandisa Maya, Cabinet Ministers present here and all other Deputy Ministers, Speaker of the National Assembly and members of the Legislature, my colleagues in the judiciary, including many of our retired colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I deliver this short tribute on behalf of the entire Solplaatje University community in Kimberley. Two seminal features of her life coalesced when Justice Yvonne Jennifer Mokgoro became the chairperson of the inaugural council of the fledgling SPU, as we call Solplaatje University for short, in 2014. Those were her passion for education and her love for Kimberley and the Northern Cape. And I saw in the program, the Northern Cape is called the arid hinterland and the neglected outback. But Yvonne and I love that place, and we still do. I became chancellor of that institution in 2015, a position I still hold. The two of us, both children of the Northern Cape, regularly work together in our respective capacities. I only, of course, in a purely ceremonial position, but hers as the leader of the highest authority at SPU. As she did in all tasks allocated to her, Justice Mokgoro served SPU with irrepressible verve and vigor and unwavering commitment and passion. She was council chairperson for just short of 7 years, and those were the most challenging years of SPU's young existence as it sought to make its way in the big, exacting world of tertiary education. That inaugural council with Justice Mokgoro at the helm laid a solid foundation of sound governance with exemplary leadership and stewardship of tremendous rectitude. She had a very keen sense of the delicate relationship between council as a governance structure and the operational responsibilities of executive management at a university. While there appear to be many today in higher education institutions who do not quite get this balance right, Justice Mokgoro, leading the council, was committed to unblemished governance and was able to hold executive management to full and proper account as a council at a university is duty-bound. At the same time, though, she also provided quiet and unwavering support to the Vice-Chancellor when it was needed for the operational effectiveness of SPU. The laudable foundation of good corporate governance driven by Justice Mokgoro and the Council was complemented by the sterling leadership of SPU's first Vice-Chancellor, Professor Eunice Balim, who is with us today, a civil engineer and former Deputy Vice-Chancellor at Wits University, whose speciality is cement and who is an acknowledged expert in higher education. The two of them were a formidable combination. One of our apex court's pioneers and a globally recognized constitutional lawyer and human rights activist, together with a world-renowned cement specialist and acknowledged higher education expert. They built something truly solid. On behalf of the entire SPU community, permit me to salute a great educationalist, lawyer, and patriot who leaves an enormous and enduring legacy of selfless, solicitous service. We were abundantly blessed to have this child of the Northern Cape guide and lead SPU during those development years. She was one of South Africa's very best. I have no doubt that Solplaatje, a feminist, as one can see in his well-known novel, Mahudi, would have nodded with strong approval at Justice Mokgoro's contribution to his home city, province, and country. And so it is with great sadness, but also with deep gratitude that we, the Council, senior management, the entire teaching cohort and student body, and I, bid Justice Mokgoro farewell. We convey our heartfelt condolences to Tata Job, Tati, and the rest of the family, friends, and her colleagues. On a personal note, fellow mourners, permit me to say goodbye personally to this giant of South African law and life. Tot ziens, my dierbare suster. Tot ons mekaar weer eendag ontmoet. Mooi loop. Robalo kakagiso. Thank you.
We know that Justice Mokgoro was passionate about human rights, especially the empowerment of women and the protection of children. In a landmark judgment of Bantine versus Bantine, she said that the judiciary must endeavor to secure for vulnerable children and disempowered women that they receive their maintenance. She said the enforcement of maintenance secures not only the rights of women, but upholds the dignity of women and promotes the foundational values of achieving equality and non-sexism. And it is appropriate for me to call to the podium at this stage Ms. Nana Magamola, and to talk about her work with Justice Mokgoro at the Nelson Mandela Foundation.
Thank you, Program Director. The Mokgoro family, His Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa, the Speaker of Parliament, members of Cabinet here present, Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, and Deputy Chief Justice Mandisa Maya, and the justices present here. May I also acknowledge our Premier, Panyaza Lisufi. All protocols observed. I have been mentioned as from the Nelson Mandela Children's Foundation. I'm actually from the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, the organization that our late president formed himself in 1996 when he was president. As the saying goes, a big tree has fallen. The news of Justice Mokgoro's accident in April 2023 shattered our world, and we all prayed very hard, hoping that she will recover very soon. Unfortunately, this was not to be, because God had other plans for our beloved one. Robin Sharma, the author of a best-selling book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, writes in one of his books, "Who will cry when I die?" He continues to say that when you were born, you cried, and all around you rejoiced. So live your life intentionally, making sure that you leave behind a legacy, so that when you die, you will rejoice and people will cry. I guess I can ask a question, who will cry when we die? Coming closer to home, the late President Mandela once said, "What counts is not the mere fact that you lived, but it is the difference you have made and the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life that you lived." I believe I can say without doubt that all of us gathered here appreciate that Justice Mokgoro has had a significant impact, leaving behind huge footprints and a great legacy. In trying to understand how Justice Mokgoro's colleagues felt about her, I thought, let me check with some of the people that she worked with. To paraphrase the description, here is what they had to say. Justice Mokgoro not only articulated Ubuntu in her court judgments, but she actually lived it. She had compassion, respect for human dignity of everyone that she came into contact with. She exhibited humanity and morality. She was not only a great judge, but she was a humble and down-to-earth person who exuded warmth and love. She made everyone who comes into her presence comfortable and relaxed. Yvonne had a calming effect on those she worked with and those that she associated with. Her charming demeanor and her open arms to embrace when you meet her is legendary. May I plead with the family and colleagues and friends to remember not only how she passed away, but rather to let our minds remember forever how she lived. The memories that she has left, that she left behind, the love, the care, diligence, and her sense of duty and purpose. Her legacy at the Children's Fund came this way. When the erstwhile chair of the fund, former Deputy Chief Justice Moseneke, retired in 2009, we found ourselves in a quandary to find a successor of equal substance. Remember, Justice Moseneke had been with the fund from inception, and a candidate that was to follow her should be the one that will ensure that Madiba's vision will continue. Amongst the candidates that came that were presented to us was the name of Justice Mokgoro. And I can say that the decision to have her as a successor to former Deputy Chief Justice Moseneke was very easy. Justice Mokgoro took over as chairperson in 2009, and the transitioning of the leadership of the fund from Moseneke was seamless because Mokgoro shared the same values as the founder, the late President Mandela, and of course, the now exiting chair. She continued with Madiba's vision for the fund, that is to change the way society treats its children. Madiba very often reminded us that children are not small adults. They are children, and they should be allowed to live like children, enjoy life as children. The second most important legacy that Yvonne left was to ensure that the fund makes President Mandela's children of building a children's hospital a reality. Under her leadership, the fund made the biggest investment to kickstart the building of the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital. With time, up to 1 billion rand was raised to build the now current state-of-the-art children's hospital, making sure that our founder's dream is realized. The journey to raise funds was long, tedious, challenging, but in December 2016, on the 3rd anniversary of President Mandela's passing, the groundbreaking hospital was launched, and the first patient was admitted in 2017. Significant to note is that this children's hospital was built in 18 months, on budget and on time. And also, I think more important that we'll appreciate is that the hospital was built from donations, and 75% of the donations came from South Africans, President. South Africans put together 75% of the funding to build a hospital. This mammoth task, again, is something that was accomplished during Justice Mokgoro's leadership. The hospital is a tertiary, quaternary hospital. It's a hospital for children who need complicated operations, ICU, and specialized treatment. And the reason this happened is because when our CEO, the then CEO's child was in hospital and in ICU, the late President Mandela went to visit the child at the hospital. And he was shocked to see a 6-year-old child in an ICU with adults. And he wanted to know, where's the hospital for children? And to his shock, he found out that there is no hospital for critical care for hospital. So the hospital is now standing. And Mr. President, I invite you and other colleagues to come and see the hospital, which is child-centered. When you walk into the hospital, you see that this is a hospital that's created by children to make sure that they feel comfortable. Because often some of the children, especially cancer patients, they are in hospital for more than 6 months. So the idea was that they should feel comfortable in the hospital and not be, be in a hurry to go home. As I conclude, I have to state that Mokgoro's love for family is well known for those who knew her very well. She raised beautiful, caring, and professional sons and a daughter who followed in her mother's career. They themselves are now raising responsible children. Her favorite topic when we had finished with the business of the day was talking about her grandchildren. And when she did that, you see her eyes twinkling with a big smile. And I suspect, like many other grandparents, she loved her grandchildren more than she loved her own children. On behalf of the trustees of the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, we thank you, family, for sharing with us your mom, your grandmother, and your sister. To Sister Yvonne, my dear, your day is done. With tears in our eyes and quivering voices, we say thank you. But we will not dishonor you. We will remember you gladly and be happy that you lived among us. We learned a lot from you, and more importantly, we know that you loved us and we loved you in return. Take a bow, ngwaneso, till we meet again. Robala ka kgotso, a Modimo a amogele moya wa gago. I thank you.
"35 years ago, fate and destiny brought 3 women together. Justice Yvonne Mokgoro, the Deputy Chief Justice Mandela Maya, and myself. We left South Africa to pursue for Deputy Chief Justice Maya and myself. It was our first master's degree. Justice Yvonne was her second. She was married, she had children. Her last born was about 2 years old at the time. So from that time is when Justice Mokgoro took Justice Maya and myself under her wing. And she would be smiling broadly after the events that played out at the JSC in this week. When she spoke at Saltplaatje University, and even though we were her juniors, she always held us high. She spoke about women judges at the Saltplaatje University in 2022. And she says, when it comes to addressing questions about women's leadership, it is the advancement and development of women that determines the level of any society. The level of development of any society. Nothing is more convincing than that women are more capable and competent to join the judiciary than having a woman Deputy Chief Justice in a leadership position. And she referred to what Justice Maya said at her interview. I'm not good because I'm a woman. I'm just a good woman judge. And while I invite Justice Maya to come, I will conclude by saying, I know there are many that will agree with me that Justice Mokgoro was not just a good woman judge. She was one of the greatest jurists that this country has produced. And on that note, I invite Deputy Chief Justice Maya to come to the podium and deliver a tribute from the legal fraternity.
Thank you, Madam Program Director, members of the clergy, members of Justice Mokgoro's family, fellow mourners, all protocol observed. Good morning. The passing of Justice Yvonne Mokgoro is a colossal loss that has shaken us all to the very core. She was not only a trailblazing nurse, teacher, lawyer, and judge, but she was also a mother, a wife, a sister, a mentor, a colleague, a dear friend, a gender activist and champion of the rights of women and children, and many other things to many people across the world. But most importantly, she was a strong, fiercely intelligent, proud, yet humble African woman. And I had the special privilege of calling her a friend, my big sister. And it is more that friend and the woman than the brilliant and pioneering judge and leader of society that everyone has been speaking about that I want to speak about briefly and celebrate today as we bid her our final farewell. As Justice Deron has indicated, Justice Mokgoro and I met 35 years ago at what was then called Jan Smuts Airport. It was on 13 June 1989. We were a group of 7 young black law students who had been awarded the Fulbright Scholarship to study Master in Law degrees at various universities in the United States of America. And we were all going to travel together to Georgetown University in Washington, DC, where we would undergo orientation in American law and culture before dispensing to our respective universities at the beginning of spring, which they call fall over there. And so would begin a memorable adventure and friendships that would last a lifetime. We would spend a glorious 2 months, which constituted more partying than attending lectures at Georgetown University. And Justice Mokgoro, who was a little older and much more restrained than us, had a tough time playing big sister and trying to rein us in and remind us of our priorities in that country. At the end of orientation, she proceeded north to the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, and I went south to Duke University in North Carolina, and the others went to their universities elsewhere. But we kept in touch and would occasionally visit one another in our different states and meet during visits to other universities and cultural landmarks which our benefactor arranged. And Justice Mokgoro would always be at the center of those get-togethers, making sure that everybody was safe and well taken care of. There is a belief in society that smart women do not particularly care about beauty and fashion, but that did not apply to this dear lady. Justice Mokgoro was style, grace, and health personified, and strutted in high heels and sported this glorious afro like a young lioness until a very last day in her 70s. One memorable highlight of my visits to her in Philadelphia was a trip that she and a couple of South African friends arranged to take me shopping to a famous landmark clothes factory in major US cities called Filene's Basement. Those who love clothes will have heard about that factory. It sells slightly soiled, high-end clothing at bargain prices. So Justice Mokgoro had warned me to save hard on my stipend for that trip, which I did. And we ended up buying tons of cheap designer clothes, which gave us immense guilty pleasure that we would speak of into our old age. But whilst we all had busy and exciting schedules, it was still a very lonely and strange experience, as it was the first time away from the continent for most of us. I had serious bouts of homesickness that threatened to disrupt my program, but could not afford to visit home. True to her kind nature, once Justice Mokgoro learned of my struggles, she made a point of phoning me and checking on me at least once every week during that entire year to make sure that I was fine. And she also visited me in North Carolina for good measure. Yet she was not having it easy herself. It was a tremendous sacrifice for her to have left her young children and husband back home for an extended period. But she had a burning desire, this burning ambition to improve herself, not just for herself, but for her children and country too. And her curiosity and unquenchable thirst for knowledge and her strong sense of fairness and right led her all the way to our Constitutional Court at the dawn of our democratic dispensation, and to the many other important institutions and organizations all over the world, to which she made an incredible contribution towards the improvement of the human condition. We have heard what an exceptional jurist Justice Mokgoro was, and this may readily be gleaned from the academic articles she wrote and the papers she presented at countless national and international conferences, seminars and workshops, mainly on sociological jurisprudence and particularly on human rights, customary law, the impact of law on society generally, and on women and children specifically, and the many seminal judgments she penned during her time at the Constitutional Court. But she was much more than that. At her core, she was first and foremost a humanist, a Rewan in our times. And this precious quality found its way into the unlikeliest of places, her court judgments, which in the best traditions of the African culture honored life and the shared human experience amongst peoples, Ubuntu. Two of these judgments are a shining example of the enduring legacy she leaves us. The one, her concurring judgment in State versus Makwanyane, and another, which abolished the death penalty and incorporated the African concept of Ubuntu into our legal jurisprudence. And the other one, her main judgment in Kosa and others versus Minister of Social Development and others, and Mahlaule and another versus Minister of Social Development, which held that it was unconstitutional that permanent residents were excluded from the social welfare system on the basis that they lacked citizenship. The long and arduous road Justice Mokgoro traveled to get to the highest echelons of the judiciary and become a world leader was characterized by all these outstanding versions of her. And such was her power, her essence, that she was able to hold so many different viewpoints and realities, and yet somehow find common ground and create unity where none should have existed. We last saw Justice Mokgoro shortly before her tragic accident at the Constitutional Court in late January last year at the launch of the Women Judges Law Journal, where she was the keynote speaker. In her usual selfless nature, she had buried her sister just a few days ago and had caught a bird flu bug in the process, but she could not bring herself to let others down. She came and delivered an inspiring speech about gender equality, her pet subject, and exhorted us to keep on using our talents for the betterment of humankind. It has been heart-wrenching to see her lying silently in hospital beds, disconnected from the world she so loved during this past year. And it was as distressing witnessing her family's pain as they carefully and lovingly tended to her. But I think this was just another testament of her character, her innate strength and tenacity to live. She would not let go that easily. Once every long while, we get a dazzling shooting star of Yvonne Mokgoro's kind. I am exceedingly fortunate and immensely proud to have lived in a space and time. We will always remember this petite giant for her warmth, kindness, humility, her calm and graceful ways, her sharp brilliance, vivaciousness, her wish for everyone in the world to do well, and her hate for injustice and inequality. And we will sorely miss her laughter that came from the pit of her stomach and her twinkling eyes. On behalf of the South African legal community, we thank her family for generously sharing her with us, and we wish them God's strength and comfort during this sad time. To you, my dear sister, rest well until we meet again. Thank you.
Pioneer Gospel Choir. We know that Justice Mokgoro epitomized grace, elegance, stature, beauty, fashion. She was a leader in all those fields. And we're going to hear from her sister, Ms. Prudence Ramasedi, where that started, how it all came about. And I invite to the podium Ms. Prudence Ramasedi.
Good morning, everybody. I acknowledge the presence of God in this house. I also acknowledge and honor the presence of our President, our Chief Justice, all prominent people in this house, every lady, every gentleman. The family wants to say thank you for your presence. We also acknowledge the presence of the priesthood. What I'm going to do today, tribute to my sister, is one of the easiest things I could ever have done in my life because of what she has been for me and all her siblings. This past year has been a very tough one. And when I say tough, I mean tough. We've never experienced so much pain in this family like we have experienced this past year. I never thought I could one day live to the word that says, I have made peace with someone who has passed on. Because as I stand here, I feel much more peaceful in her passing than the past year that she has been living. Not that I don't acknowledge God's goodness when I say this. I still say thank you to God because He has carried us through a journey and a half. Yvonne is the third born of the Buffalo family, in the Buffalo family. Many things she's the second born, but she's not. Our first born sister died when all of us were not yet on earth. My second eldest sister was 4 months old when our eldest sister died at the age of 4. So many people don't know her. That is why they think Aus Yvonne is the second born. She's actually the third born. In our home, like we have previously heard, we were raised with a very important moral, a very important statute that you must be the smallest amongst all. You must be humble and work hard. Many things Yvonne was intelligent, she wasn't. She was only hardworking. That is why she has achieved what she has achieved now. Shame she was, if I have to say it, and I'm sorry to say it, no offense, please take no offense. She was one of the dumbest. Comparatively speaking, within the family. My younger sister, my last born sister, was the most intelligent. May her soul rest in peace. But the laziest. Scripture is teaching us, I'm so sorry for that. Scripture is teaching us in James chapter 4 verse 10, humble yourself by the side of the Lord, and at the right time, God will lift you up. You don't just humble yourself. We were taught in our house that you must be humble. But when we got to church, because my parents were staunch Roman Catholic Christians, so was Yvonne. When we got to church, we were taught that you must humble yourself, being at the side of God. And at the right time, God will lift you up. And that is exactly how she lived. She went to high school, being the most humble high schooler. She was up to standard with everything. Her shoes used to shine like nobody's business, but we did that work. We would polish her shoes. We would wash her socks. We would iron her uniform. And tomorrow when she steps out of the house, being that up-to-date, matriculant, you'd swear that she did all the work, but we did it. I remember when she was in matric, I was in grade, what they call grade 7 now, but it was standard 5 at that time. I was very naughty at school. Every time the elders would be called to school for my notoriousness. So one day my teacher decided to call her to my class and come and gave her the complaint. And when the teacher realized, Hore, Kanti, Yvonne is your sister. The teacher told me, you know what? I never knew that you were the Buffels from Jala Street. Jala Street is a street where we used to live. I didn't know that you were Maggie and Dougie's child. That's my mother and my father. And I want to tell you now, you are busy degrading what we believe is that family is all about. So stop it right now. When my sister stepped in, well, in those days, the teachers didn't have a staff room or offices where they would talk to parents or things. Ne? They would come to class. And when my classmates saw that, oh, Yvonne is my sister, I got a name in the school. Kanti Yvonne is wa gago? I said, yes. No, hey, I'm your friend from today. I became famous. I learned then, also from my teachers, that I need to behave and keep up the baton that my mother and father was carrying. Yvonne was a nurturer. Yvonne was a caregiver. Yvonne was a breadwinner. Black taxi in the goed. My second eldest sister, the one whom she comes after, was a nurse. And then she started by working as a general laborer before she went to school. It took very long to achieve her career. All her peers had already qualified. She came afterwards, like I told you. If she was intelligent, she would have studied in record time. So she went to work. There were now two in the house, two of the siblings that were already employed. My mother and father could breathe now. My father was a general worker, my mother was a domestic worker, like you heard before. My mother and father could breathe because they contributed into raising us now, the ones that comes afterwards. Now, I am the one paying black tax, trying to help the kids of my siblings. That was the order of the day in the house. In order for us to survive, my father and mother had to get help from them to raise us. And that is how we survived, though our family was so huge. She used to tell us, don't forget what Ma and Pa taught us. Work hard in order to achieve in life. She told us there's no person under the sun who cannot achieve. Everyone can achieve. It doesn't matter whether you achieve lowly or highly. The point must be to achieve. One day, when you look back, you must tell yourself, I was there, but now I am here. Don't ever think it's only when you are a chief justice or you are a president in the land that you have achieved. It's not the ultimate things that makes you to see that you have achieved. Moving from point A to point B is an achievement. And that encourages you in life to go on. I want to tell Yvonne, we used to call her C in the house, from Sisi. Sisi is an elder sister. Before she could become an icon outside, a giant of an icon, before she could be an iconic figure outside, she was a daughter in a house. She was a wife in a home. She was a mother. She was a sister. She was a grandmother, an aunt. And whatever you saw in Yvonne, all of you seated here, whatever you saw in her is what she has learned at home. And all of us are like that. You wouldn't tell when she is herself. We were taught to be yourself, humble, and work hard. Whenever she is herself, you wouldn't say she's a judge. By the way, when she came home and said she wants to become a lawyer, we all were astonished. We told her, no, but you are a nun. We see nun in you, and also she had mentioned it once that she wants to be a nun because she was very soft-spoken, and even her steps that she takes is of the softest. Very humble. We called her the Piperach one. Mr. President would understand what I mean by Piperach because he speaks Afrikaans very well. He was a soft one that would get hurt very easily. It's only the cruelest of cruels that would hurt her. But if you know her and you know what kind of person she is, you would never want to hurt her. That is what she was. Now here she comes home, I want to be a lawyer, a lichmon. In our eyes, a lawyer was somebody who lies like nobody's business. Now all of a sudden, this nun wants to be a lawyer. And then we said, I rest my case. And there she is. She became that lawyer. And that is why she never went to the bench, Mr. Chief Justice, because maybe she didn't want to lie. We are proud of her achievements. It has been an example to us. And I want to believe to many of you seated here. And she wouldn't have made it, like Tati said the other day, without the grace of God and also your support as a society. Thank you for believing in her. Thank you for loving her. Thank you for looking up to her as an example. And I want to ask all the people that she has mentored to please mentor us further in order for us to make her legacy live on. Thank you very much.
Justice Mokgoro's love for her family shone through. I recall shortly before I became a mother-in-law, I spoke to her about being a mother-in-law, and she says, "Ooh, I have a wonderful relationship with my daughters-in-law. I spoil them, I take them out, I make tea for them, I take them for tea. I don't expect them to stand and wait for me and to serve me." And she exhibited such unconditional love for her family, for the woman who had married her sons. And I was touched by that, and I said, we can all learn from her. And on that note, I would ask the grandchildren to come forward, please. They're going to give a tribute to their grandmother.
Good morning, everybody. Mr. President, Chief Justice, Deputy Chief Justice, all protocol observed. I want to thank you all for being here with us this morning, celebrating the life of Mama. I know you share this loss with us. These last 13 months, there's been a lot of pain and suffering, but there was also a lot of love, a massive outpouring of love for Mama, for the family, and between us, just amongst ourselves. This morning, I just want to say a final goodbye to Mama. I called her Yvonne. Yvonne, I said the other day that I couldn't and haven't ever imagined existence without you. You were so full of life, so youthful, had so much energy that it was impossible to see the end of life for you. It was definitely a massive shock when I saw your gray hair for the first time as you laid in the hospital bed. My mind short-circuited for a bit because, of course, at 73, one would have gray hair, but not you. I have said repeatedly that you ran your race and finished strong, and yours was a well and fully lived life. While it's true, it has been difficult to fully embrace it as a comforting thought it ought to be. Because the other truth is that you still had so much you wanted to give, so much you wanted to share, so much of the world you still wanted to see, and so much more time that you wanted to spend with your loved ones. You knew that we needed you still, so you held on, fighting till the very end, like the true fighter you are and have always been. I wish I could go back in time, to a time when you were still here, before we had to serenade you with Anita Baker and Bach, weren't in and out of hospital, weren't on that road that night, were simply existing in your element, enjoying your garden, sharing pictures of the flowers, cooking in your kitchen and making the best gravy, sharing recipes and dishes you've been experimenting with, our video calls in our respective gardens, your precious laugh and smile, how you'd beam with endless joy that would spread to everyone in the room. These simple moments were most special. I want to thank you for being your full exemplary self, showing us what it means to lead and to fight for what you believe in, for staying true to yourself, for showing us what it means to live in your purpose, for being a grandmother, mother, and friend, special deluxe combo, all in one, for your unwavering support, for your love, for being there, for serving your country well. We are because you were. I bid you farewell, Ma. I'm proud to be yours. I'm proud of the legacy that you leave behind, which will live on through all of us whose lives you have touched. Know that you are loved and you always will be. Rest easy, knowing that you brought so much love and joy to us all, that you left the world a little better. You remain in our hearts forever. I wrote a message to her as well. In a Maya Angelou poem, Maya Angelou being one of her favorite writers, she writes that love is the scream of anguish. And I think of that line often because through this anguish that we feel from her death, I realize that the love I have for her, the power in it, the intensity of it, its depth, is transcendental and otherworldly. My admiration and veneration for her, the complete awe at how a human being can be the way that she was, is otherworldly. And I'd like to say to her that this anguish and this despair and this wretched feeling of fear that things may never be okay again is a realization of how beautiful your love was and how much it still means. So maybe it's okay, because we got to experience the gift of living in that love. The way she hugged me when she saw me felt like being held by love. I still feel her embrace from over a year ago. She made me feel seen, and it's beautiful to be seen, to be recognized, to be understood. I am who I am partly because of her. She was everything a grandmother was supposed to be. She will continue to live through me, through us all. A part of her will always be alive. We will eternally be engulfed by the power of her soul, of her heart. Finally, one of my favorite lessons from her, one of many, is to fight for what you believe in. No matter how difficult the terrain, continue to fight. Be selfless. Hold other people's needs in your heart, because there is no liberation when our fellow human beings continue to suffer and live under great oppression. She was so incredibly wise. She was exemplary. She was a revolutionary far ahead of her time. In her becoming one with the earth again, I bid her farewell. However, I do that with the knowledge that I will hold her hand again, just as I did when she passed. We'll be together hand in hand again. I love her dearly, and I miss her. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kumo, and I have the pleasure of calling this amazing woman that we all know and love my grandmother. If there's one thing that I'm grateful for, it's the fact that I got to experience her unconditional love and her enticing spirits. If this speech was being made under different circumstances, and she was here to know how nervous I was to make it. She would give me a lecture and then say, "Kumi, go out there and smash it like I know you can." And I would feel so much better. She had that kind of effect. Gogo loved lots of things. She loved music and books and dancing, but most of all, she loved the people around her. And there was never a time where this wasn't evident. Whenever we spent time together, I always enjoyed it, because days with her were filled with laughter and the most interesting stories. But most importantly, whenever we parted ways, I left with my heart feeling full. I wouldn't be the person standing before you today if it wasn't for her. And I go to bed better at night knowing that a little bit of her lies in all of us. Her smile rests in mine and her spirit runs through our souls. This reminds me that even though she is not physically with us, she will always be part of us. It reminds me that she is never really far away, because her love is part of what keeps us going. Rest in peace, Gogo. We love you. Thank you.
Dear Gogo, there are countless emotions I wish to convey, but in simple terms, you are an incredibly strong, wise, and loving woman. Your presence in my life has been valued, serving as my role model and a daily source of inspiration. Your encouragement has always pushed me to pursue my aspirations, for which I am endlessly grateful. One of the most meaningful times we spent together was when we had our heart-to-heart conversations, and you share your journey and the experiences that shaped the remarkable person you are today. My love for you knows no bounds, and your absence will be deeply felt. I hope to be as loving and nurturing a mother, grandmother, and role model as you have been. Now, as I say my final goodbyes, may you rest in peace, Gogo.
Dear Gogo, thank you for showing integrity and teaching me how to make the world a better place. Your love will always remain in my heart. I will never forget what a courageous person you were in my life. I hope you rest in peace. Lots of love from Rufense.
My dear Goku, thank you for trying so hard to be there when I need you. You have had my back since the start. I love seeing that beautiful smile on your face all the time. Well, almost all the time. Every time when I wake up, I see you in the kitchen when I'm at your house. Every time I see you, I think about how great you are. Not just as my Kuku, as a good person. Oh Kuku, I love you so much and I'll never stop loving you. Now that you're in heaven, there's one place I'll never forget you, which is my heart. I know you're in a better place, but I still miss you. I'll always miss you. Please keep us safe and healthy and stay well. Rest in peace, Kuku.
Your Gogo has run the race. She has fought a good fight, and there's a crown in heaven waiting for her. As the Deputy Chief Justice said, one of the most difficult things that Justice Yvonne had to do was to leave her young family behind. And as I welcome Justice Yvonne's children to the podium, I want to do an adaptation of a poem by a poet that she loved, Maya Angelou. When great souls die, remember that after a while, peace will bloom. And after a while, we realize that because they existed, we can be. Because your mother existed, you can be. Because your mother existed, you can be better and you can do better, all because your mother existed. Please come to the podium.
Take my glasses off so I can see better. I got lucky. I have two wonderful daughters, Naledi, Ngwedi, and my best friend is also my wife, and I, of course, her husband. They are deeply intelligent and intuitively creative. Naledi, my eldest daughter, is an accountant, and she could have been a painter. Ngwedi Moon is a student of science and a talented writer and artist. The future can still take her anywhere. My wife, also my business partner, studied business and is now often more of an artist than I am. Mama taught us that you can be anything you want to be, and that whatever your dreams are, they are valid. She also taught us that there are as many valid templates for life as there are human lives. There is no one single truth. Every perspective, adequately supported, has a place. I got lucky. I married my mother, and she multiplied in my children. Thank you for the lessons and the gifts, Aunt Yvonne. Love you lots.
Dumelang Phuthego. I'm the most intelligent one in the family. I'm also the hardest working one. Lots has been said about Mama over the last 14 days, it has been. It has actually been 14 days to this day. And I know lots are still going to be said about her. All fitting for a woman of her stature. But today, I want to say, Mama was a real mother. Mama has had this unshakable love for her children. She stood by us, she defended us, and at times, just a few times, you would say, when I was spoiled, but hey, she wanted to do it, so be it. But she wasn't only a mother to us. Some of our cousins from the Mokgoro side and the Buffalo side lost their mothers at an early age. And she took it upon herself to be a mother to our cousins. And that just shows what kind of a woman she was. She had this soft, tough, tender, motherly love. And for that, we are very grateful. And we will always remember her as that. So I just want to tell her, I hope her spirit of humanity, love, kindness, generosity lives in us, in our children, in our children's children, and in generations to come. And you know what, even in the general South African society, because if that happens, you're going to have a better society. Thank you, Ma. Thanks for the loves. See you soon in heaven. And I am going to heaven. Thank you.
Mama, to have come from you is the greatest privilege. Na, Lisina, will continue to raise our two daughters re bone le re fentse gore ba itse ebile ba tlhaloganye gore ba tswa kae. Thank you very much, Mama.
How do I find the words to bid farewell to you, my love, my friend, my confidant, motho wa ka? I will miss you deeply. My world is quieter without your hearty laugh, colder without your warm embrace. I'll think about you when spring comes along and flowers begin to bloom. I will remember you when I hear the sounds of Anita Baker or Ray Charles on a still Sunday morning. I will miss you when my son Zuko achieves something special at school and I want to share my pride with you. I will miss you when I need advice on how to best hang a piece of art on the walls in my home, when choosing an outfit for a special occasion. And I will miss you desperately when life gets heavy and I need a shoulder to cry on. Mama, I love you yesterday, I love you today, and I love you tomorrow. My rock, my North Star, and our new angel. Good night, daughter of the soil, Mama to us, and Koko to the babies. I love you.
When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder. When this great tree fell, we felt the shudder from Constitutional Hill to Kimberley. And it is appropriate at this stage to call the chief from Constitutional Hill. And it's my singular honor, ladies and gentlemen, to invite the Chief Justice of South Africa, the Honorable Justice Raymond Zondo, to come and address us. Sohlazi, as the name he likes. Sorry, Chief Justice. And after that, I will hand over to my co-program director, Minister of Justice, Mr. Lamola.
The Mokgoro family, the Pathel family, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa, the Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic, our Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa, Justices of the Constitutional Court and other members of the judiciary present here, Ministers and Deputy Ministers present here, Premier of the Gauteng Province and other MECs here, Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, and all mourners present today. We have come together this morning, this afternoon, to pay our respects to our departed sister and colleague, Justice Yvonne Mokgoro, and to convey our condolences to the Mokgoro family, especially her children, all relatives, friends, and her loved ones, and to give them support during this difficult time. But before I proceed, allow me, program directors, to take this opportunity to express my and the judiciary's appreciation to the President for agreeing to accord our colleague and sister the honor that he has accorded her in terms of this official funeral. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I take this opportunity to also say to the Mokgoro family on behalf of the judiciary, we are with you and we stand with you as you try to make sense of the events of the past 13 months that have led to the departure of your mother, your sister, your aunt, your granny. We wish you strength today, tomorrow, and in the future that you will now have to face without her. I wish to assure you, however, that though she will not be with you physically, she will still be with you in spirit. And she will give you strength to face life even without her. She will give you strength to achieve what you want to achieve. She will give you strength to see many other Yvonnes in society. I want to assure you that we as the judiciary have lost a great colleague, a great sister, a great jurist, and a wonderful human being. Justice Mokgoro was an embodiment of the values of our Constitution. As many speakers have said, she was humble, she was loving, she was caring, and she was hardworking. Of all the years that I've known her, I've never come across her angry or bitter. The fact that Justice Yvonne Mokgoro was a justice of the Constitutional Court was not something that was always in her mind. Justice Mokgoro had the same respect for everybody. Whether you were a Chief Justice, a President, a Bishop, or
you were just an ordinary person, Justice Mokgoro had the same respect for everybody. When we have lost a loved one, it is natural to focus on our loss and the fact that the life that lies ahead of us is a life without our loved one. However, I want to invite the Mokgoro family and all of us gathered here this morning to focus not on our loss, but to focus on the good that Justice Mokgoro did for us as individuals, for us as different groups, and for us as a country. I want us to focus on the love she showed us, on the support she gave us, and on the contribution that she made to the strengthening of the foundational pillars of our constitutional democracy as one of the first 11 justices of the Constitutional Court, which would make sure that our constitutional democracy does not collapse, no matter the storms that it may face in the future. Justice Mokgoro was one of the first 11 justices to be appointed to the Constitutional Court in 1994, when the Constitutional Court was established. She was one of the 11 who were given the enormous responsibility to lay a strong foundation for our constitutional democracy. I have the highest respect for Justice Mokgoro and her 10 other colleagues who were appointed as the first justices of the Constitutional Court because of the contribution they made and the work that they did in strengthening, in laying a foundation for our constitutional democracy by way of the jurisprudence that they laid for all of us who came after to follow and build on. They had nothing to start from, and they had to start from scratch. On an occasion such as this, we ought to say to her and to those who were in that first team, whether still alive or no longer with us, we are eternally grateful for your sacrifice, for your hard work, and for the foundations you built. Indeed, if you ever think that we in the Constitutional Court are doing well to safeguard and protect our constitutional democracy, you must know that we do so because of the guidance and the foundations that were laid by the first 11 of the Constitutional Court. It is not possible within the limited time that one has to say a lot about the contribution that Justice Mokgoro made through her judgments in the Constitutional Court. We will nevertheless get an opportunity to say more on Monday when we will have a memorial service in her honor at the Constitutional Court. But as it has been pointed out, we all know that she was part of the panel that sat in Mokgoro and outlawed the death penalty. And that's brought to an end a great suffering that mostly had been felt by black people in the context of the use of the death penalty. She was part of the panel which answered the call of prisoners ahead of the 1999 election when the IEC did not want to register prisoners so that they could vote, and they approached the constitutional court. And she, together with her colleagues, ensured that even prisoners would be able to enjoy the right to vote. She was one of the panel that ensured that when South Africans were overseas ahead of the 1999 election were going to be denied the opportunity to vote and approached the constitutional court made sure that they could vote. It has been said that she had a special place for vulnerable groups. Indeed, that is so. And we see that in her judgments in Xhosa. We see that in her judgment in Chief Lesapo. We see that in her other judgments. She had a special passion for vulnerable people. However, on this occasion, we have to ask ourselves the question, how do we want to honor her? In this gathering, I suspect that there may be two groups. But I hope it is only one group. There may be a group that will accompany her and say goodbye. And tomorrow, life goes back to normal. But there may be a group, there is another group that will say, in honor of this outstanding daughter of the soil, there is something I'm going to change. And if you fall into that group, you have to identify what it is that you are going to change in honor of this wonderful South African. You can say, I will put more effort in fighting corruption because Justice Mokgoro wanted to make sure that the poorest in our society are uplifted. But corruption prevents that. Justice Mokgoro would have wanted to make sure that all those who take an oath or affirmation because they must perform constitutional duties respect their oath of office and respect the affirmations they take. You can say today, no matter what I have done in the past, I'm not going to be part again of not respecting my oath of office. I'm not going to be part again of condoning corruption. I will dedicate my life in honor of the South African to fighting corruption. What about us in the judiciary? I have no doubt that Justice Mokgoro would like us who remain behind in the judiciary to emulate the first Constitutional Court 11, who carried out their functions fearlessly and in accordance with their oath of office, and who, in their judgments, displayed their concern for the most vulnerable in our society. We too should do the same. She would like us to ensure that we continue to fight and defend the independence of the judiciary. She would like us to uphold the rule of law she would like us not to compromise on integrity. I have no doubt that I speak for all my colleagues when I say the greatest honor we can show and appreciation that we can show for what Justice Mokgoro meant to us is for us to rededicate ourselves as servants of the people who have been given an opportunity to serve as judges and use the Constitution, stick to our oath of office, and make sure that we strengthen our constitutional democracy. I intend to do so. I think my colleagues will also do so. Before I finish, I want to say, Deputy Chief Justice, that I too last saw Justice Mokgoro early last year in circumstances when I could have a conversation with her, because when I next saw her, I could not have a conversation with her. It was the occasion that you have told us about prior to the accident, on the occasion of the launch of a journal of the South African chapter of the International Women Judges Association. It was one evening at the Constitutional Court where she was the keynote speaker. She wore a blue top and a black skirt. She was her usual jovial self that evening, chatting to everybody and hugging everybody. She delivered, indeed, a wonderful and captivating speech that evening. She and I hugged, laughed, and took pictures after her speech. Little did I know that it was the last occasion I would have a conversation with her. Little did I know that it was the last occasion I would have to enjoy her hug. And little did I know that if I wanted to ask her for any advice, that was my last opportunity to do so. And that the next time I would see her, many months thereafter, she would not be able to have a conversation with me. Had I known that evening that that was my last opportunity for all these things, I probably would have stayed with her for as long as I could to enjoy her personality, ask her many questions, and have the longest hug she could allow me to have. Had I known, I would have used that opportunity to drink as much as I could from the well of her experience she had over 15 years in the Constitutional Court, so that I could contribute going forward to maintaining the guidelines that they had put in place during the first term of the first 11 of the Constitutional Court. I did not know it was the last time. Therefore, today, as we say goodbye to her, I want to say, my dear sister, we might not be able to speak to you, but I know that you are going to continue to speak to us through your judgments. You are going to continue to guide us so that we can guide the constitutional democracy of this country through whatever storms may lie ahead. Thank you very much.
Pilu di robehile Mimoya idubehile Impa Jehovah ritepile Wena fela Jehovah ritepile wena Jehovah ritepile wena Jehovah ritepile Put a trust in you, Lord.
Thank you very much to the Tswane Gospel Choir and the Chief Justice for the befitting tribute. I also want to thank my co-program director, Justice Theron, for her sterling job. It shows that separation of powers can work in a cooperative environment. I heard that Justice Mokgoro was stylish. I also cross a path. When I was a president of the SRC at the University of Venda, she was the chairperson of council. So she always told us, student leaders must be presentable. You can't come here just like students. And the current president was the chancellor of the University of Venda at the time. With this, Mr. President, we will welcome you forward to give an eulogy on behalf of the government of the Republic of South Africa.
Program Directors, Justice Theron, Minister of Justice, Ronald Lamula, the family of Justice Mokgoro, the Mokgoro family, the Buffel family, Chief Justice of our Constitutional Court, Deputy Chief Justice, Justice Mandela Foundation, the Premier of our province, Gauteng, Tate Panyaza Lesufi, ministers and deputy ministers here present, the leadership of our parliament, Speaker of the National Assembly who's here and others, the Chief of the Defense Force, General Ruzani Mapwanya, members of our judiciary who are here present, and members of the legal fraternity, and representatives of civil society, and yes, the leadership of the clergy, particularly this congregation, and fellow mourners. Dumelang. Kiri dumelang. Ke a leboga. Chief Justice, you requested that we should consider holding an official funeral for Chief Justice or Justice Mokgoro. What we normally do is to respond to a request, usually from our various 9 provinces, and in this case, you requested so. But your request came at the same time as a request that came from Cyril Ramaphosa, who also requested that the president should confer an official funeral. So our requests coincided, and that is why we are having this honor that we are bestowing on our departed Justice Yvonne Mokgoro. I'd like to offer my thanks to the many people who have spoken here and have paid tribute to Justice Mokgoro, thus making this official funeral much more meaningful. The tributes from the family, the children and the grandchildren were heartwarming. The tribute from Sister Prudence Ramasedi was quite revealing. Mary, aus Prudence, it's possible for Justice or Nelly Mitsamang C. Ohai may not have been the most intelligent in your home, particularly maybe when it came to making gravy or cooking. But Mokgoro, she was a legal eagle. She was a bright legal star, and that's why we are honoring her today. And Deputy Chief Justice Mandela Foundation,
Your tribute was also quite revealing. You told us maybe what many of us would not want to hear about Justice Yvonne Mokgoro, about how you used to go to parties. We don't want to hear that about we always want to look at our justices as people who keep to themselves and write judgments. And write good judgments like the ones that Justice Yvonne Mokgoro participated in, iconic or outstanding judgments like the right to life and all that, which continues to make life a bit difficult for many who keep on saying the death penalty must come back, the death penalty must come back. And when we tell them about how Justice Mokgoro and her colleagues ruled that everyone should have a right to life in our country, sometimes they don't understand, but mostly do. Chief Justice, thank you too for your tribute. I now know, Deputy Chief Justice Mandisa Maya told us that Justice Yvonne Mokgoro loved fashion. Now you are revealing a particular side about yourself. You even noticed that she was wearing a blue top and a black skirt. Now, you see, Chief Justice, many of us as men, we never remember what women were wearing. But women always do. They will tell you that when I met you, you were wearing this, and when you have long forgotten. But today, my dear Chief Justice, I also now know that hugs mean a lot to you. And thank you to all of you who have brought some real light, wonderful moments to this occasion. This is an occasion to celebrate the life of Justice Yvonne Mokgoro. Much as we mourn her, we are also here to celebrate her life. Because we gather here today to lay to rest a great South African, a champion of human rights, an outstanding jurist and an icon of gender justice in our country. And through her life and through her work, I would call her Imbogoto, Justice Yvonne Mokgoro was a pioneer. In so many respects, her legacy is a tribute to resilience, to principled activism, and to steadfastness, no matter how great the obstacle or how difficult the climb. In 1994, upon its inception, as we heard, she became the first black woman to be appointed to the Constitutional Court. Reaching that pinnacle was not a simple progression. It did not come easy, and as we have heard from her own humble beginnings in her family, hard work was instilled in her, humility, and that is what she exhibited throughout her life. Her progression was a culmination, yes, of the many years of hard work. She found her calling to become a human rights lawyer in the trenches of struggle. As a student activist and member of the African National Congress in the then Bophuthatswana and later in the Northern Cape. Her appointment to the Constitutional Court was the product of many years of both formal and self-study to better herself and to advance in her chosen profession. It was the fulfillment of a dream in which she never lost faith. Yes, a dream that was planted by no other than one of our greatest leaders, Robert Sobukwe. Even while working in a host of different jobs, yes, in menial, what job people would call menial jobs, like being an assistant, nursing assistant, a retail salesman, or as a clerk. It was a progression from a successful career as a legal academic when she produced groundbreaking research on customary law, Ubuntu, and all that, and all of the time when our jurisprudence and case law around this subject were still evolving. It was an achievement that followed decades of building a rigorous and demanding career for herself. A career that would be of great benefit to the people of our country. The life of Justice Yvonne Mokgoro was the life of untold numbers of black women in this country under apartheid, who bore the triple burden of race, class, and gender. She sought to carve a path for herself at a time when the odds were staked heavily against women and against black women in particular. And yet she went forth with courage, with determination, and with the humility that was her trademark. It is because she understood these struggles and challenges keenly, because she had experienced them firsthand, that Justice Mokgoro was such a passionate as well as an ardent advocate for gender justice. It is also the reason why she dedicated a substantial part of her time to training and mentoring young female lawyers. And today we have heard about the two female lawyers who she mentored, our Deputy Chief Justice as well as Justice Terron. In its tribute to the late Justice Mokgoro, the International Commission of Jurists described her as an inspiration to the next generation of women lawyers, not only in South Africa, but around the world. She brought this humanism and commitment to social justice to the bench. In her judgment on the court's very first case, the seminal State versus Makwanyane, involving the death penalty, she expanded on the principle of Ubuntu, describing it as one shared value and ideal that runs like a golden thread across cultural lines, as many on this stage also attested to. During her time on the bench, in the public interest work that she did, she engaged in, during her own retirement, she was steadfast in her view that regard for human dignity should be the bedrock of jurisprudence everywhere. This understanding was brought to bear in the positions that she held within the United Nations system as well. Between 2016 and 2020, Justice Mokgoro chaired the United Nations Internal Justice Council, which is tasked with ensuring independence, professionalism, and accountability in the administration of justice system of the United Nations. And I should say on this point that our country has truly been honored by an international body like the United Nations in that, in dealing with some of their own internal governance processes, they have relied heavily on legal eagles from South Africa who have played an important role in helping to shape the governance processes that have to deal with race, that have to deal with how the United Nations system should respond to justice internally. Recently, former legal counsel of former President Thabo Mbeki and my own legal counsel have been involved in helping the United Nations to shape their own internal systems when dealing with matters of race. And it is wonderful to know that Justice Mokgoro was also involved in that type of work when it comes to justice in the UN system. So our country has truly produced great legal minds that transcend just the borders of our own country and have also gone to play an important role at an international level. In the aftermath of the killing of George Floyd in the United States in 2020, which gave birth to the global Black Lives Matter movement, the United Nations Human Rights Council set up an independent expert mechanism to advance racial justice and equality in law enforcement. Justice Mokgoro was appointed as its first chair. As South Africa, we are immensely proud that our jurists are held in such high regard internationally on matters of human rights, racial discrimination, and gender justice. Alongside her fellow other justices, she affirmed that Ubuntu was interwoven with the rights to life, to dignity, and to equality. She wrote several judgments, as we heard, that advance the socio-economic rights of society's most vulnerable. Much of Justice Mokgoro's academic research supported legal and policy transformation with respect to the rights of women and children. And this morning we also heard from my sister, who was talking about the work that they've been doing together in the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund. This work has had a broad span, from the impact of social grants on the lives of indigent women to issues around customary law and inheritance and succession. Justice Mokgoro was both a witness to and a companion of the transformation of the bench. When she was appointed to the bench 30 years ago, there were approximately 165 judges. Of these, 160 of these judges were white men. 3 were black men and 2 were white women. Today, we can be proud as a nation of the fact that 45% of our judges are women. 32% are black women. The late judge received many accolades during her illustrious career. Her experience and expertise saw her being appointed to a number of advisory boards of entities working to advance human rights both at home and abroad, including, as we had earlier, the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund. It is in recognition of her far-reaching and wide-ranging contribution to our country that she was awarded the Order of Baobab in 2015 by our nation. Justice Yvonne Mokgoro was a woman of great stature and courage and strength. Just as we mourn her, we also celebrate her. As much as Mokgoro grinds, it also soothes. She was an exceptional jurist who, alongside her peers on the Constitutional Court, set the highest standards of the new democratic state. They were standards we will continuously strive to uphold now and into the future. O dirile motho o. Ditiro tsa gagwe di a mo paka. A go tlhokagale gore re shebe kwa le kwa le kwa re ipotsa gore o dirile eng. O dirile. Re a mo leboga ka gobane o diretse setšhaba se sa gaetsho. And so, drawing on the words of John Donne, we say, death, be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. For those whom thou thinkest thou dost overthrow, die not. The legacy that Justice Mokgoro leaves behind is truly a towering one. To her family, both the Mokgoro and the Buffel family, we share in your loss, as the Chief Justice also said. May you be comforted by the knowledge that your sister, your mother, your grandmother, your aunt, her work continues to inspire and to guide many, not only in the judiciary, but across many sectors as well. May we have the courage that she exhibited. May we all have the resilience that she demonstrated. May we all, in reflecting on her legacy, be reminded of our duty to help build a South Africa of true equality, South Africa of freedom, and a South Africa of human rights. And yes, Chief Justice, a South Africa free of corruption that robs the poor, a South Africa of those leaders who will take their oath seriously and serve the people of South Africa like Justice Mokgoro did. Go ba lelapa la ga Mokgoro le la ga Buffel, tshika yotlhe ka bophara le ditsala, no le re adimile mogaka o, rotlhe re latlhegetswe. We have all lost. We want to thank you for having lent her to us as a nation. And we say, Justice Mokgoro, tsamaya ka kgotso le ka kagiso, re tla dula re go gopola ka ditiro tse tsa gago tse ntle tseo di eleditseng setšhaba. Setšhaba sa gageso se tla dula se go gopola ke re o tsamaye ka kgotso and o tsamaye ka kagiso. I want to thank you all.
Re a o leboga, Mr. President. Indeed, o dirile. Justice Maya always says, Mr. President, that as judges, they are human beings first. We will now have a vote of thanks. Mr. Tebe Ikala Fing, but maybe before he comes forward, I'll just make some few announcements that at the cemetery, there are identified people who will go to the site, to the grave site, and also to a marquee for the family, so that there is no confusion. There is also lunch at the cemetery, but on another site. So as you get in, if you have not been identified as we leave from here to go to the grave site and also to the marquee where the family will be, please just go into the site where there will be lunch that will be served. Mr. Tebe Ikalafing, please come forward.
Itateng Mpo Dumi Bobo Defo, the Buffalo family from Kimberley and the Mokgoro family. We had gathered here to share with you the pain, the hurt when you hurt, without presuming that our pain is the same. For tears are only memories in motion. We gathered here to give the gift of grief, to stand beside you in silence and not uncomfortable with your tears, to allow you the gift of mourning this loss. We're quite aware that to you, she was a north, your south, your east, your west, your working week, your Sunday best, your noon, your midnight, your talk, your song, a love that would last forever. His Excellency President Ramaphosa, the family is grateful that you have accorded our beloved sister such an important and appropriate funeral today. I want to thank you for honoring Justice Mokgoro, who has been a paragon of the Democratic Republic of South Africa, who did justice to the call, not only to fight for freedom, but to serve South Africa, and to leave it better than she found it. Finally, Justice Mokgoro, thank you for shining a light on the city of firsts, Kimberley, for shining a light on the dusty streets of Jala in Kimberley, the street that led you to our beloved St. Boniface School and molded you to be a devout Catholic that you are, for living up to the highest ideals of our country, for being an older sister to many of us when we left 35 years ago in the US, for reminding us and for institutionalizing Ubuntu and enduring fabric of our African culture. The family of Buffalo, the family of Mokgoro are forever grateful for every single one of us here, for honoring their daughter, their mother, their grandmother, their friend. They're grateful for all the medical and nursing staff who looked after her for the last 13, 14 months. They are grateful for every single one of us who prayed for her and who prayed for them, who helped them, who carried them through these difficult times. To paraphrase what we say as Catholics, in bidding farewell to our sister, may the road rise up to meet you. May the wind always be behind your back. May the sun shine upon your soul. May the rains fall soft upon the fields where you'll be buried. And until we meet again, May God hold you in the palm of his hand as you rise up to meet Maggie and Doi Belfort. Until we meet again, on behalf of the Belfort and Mokgoro family, thank you, South Africa.
Thank you very much. We will now allow the choir to sing the Tshwane Gospel Choir. We also thank you for the good tributes you have given. From there, the Defense Force will then take over. It will now be the last time you see my handsome face. I also thank you for being a very good audience. Thank you very much.
When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like seas billows roll,
Chief, His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, members of Parliament, Chief Justice and members of Judiciary, the Premier of Gauteng, Chief South African National Defence Force, and generals present, the bereaved family and friends, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. Mine is to make the life of the program director simple. Order of movement from the church here to the gravesite and the expectations thereof. By the way, I am Colonel Mkhize, the marshalling officer for this funeral. On behalf of South African National Defence Force, we sincerely do our condolences with the family and friends of Justice Yvonne Mokgoro. The following aspects should be observed during the military procession within the official state funeral category 1, which is undertaken by the Defence Force. After we are done inside the church by the chaplain, the bearer party, that is our sergeant majors and our officers, will go to the coffin after their names are called and move towards the door and stop. Thereof, order of march will be, behind them, it will be the immediate family, followed by the president, followed by the Chief Justice, followed by Chief of South African Defence Force. Then the rest of the congregation can join. Then outside on the vehicles, okay, before we reach the vehicles, that grouping, they will march with the coffin up until we reach the gun carriage. That side of the, I don't know if there's a complex or there's a mall, then when we reach that side, then we'll stop everybody, then to go inside the vehicles. The vehicles will already be lined up in that sequence, but small difference. After the hearse, no, after the gun carriage, it will be the hearse. After the hearse, it will be the vehicles, 2 vehicles of the burial party. Immediately after them, then it will be the entourage of the president, followed by the Chief Justice. No, I beg your pardon. It will be the immediate family. Then the immediate family, we request, humbly request, that those 4 or 5 widows be the immediate family. The rest of the family, they will follow after Chief South African National Defence Force. So it will be the vehicles of the burial party, then the family, the president, Chief Justice, the Premier, Chief Defence, then the family again, then the rest of the congregation. Then we move out at the robots, we turn left. On the main road, there's another set of robots as you go down. There, we'll stop for a few minutes to allow those troops who are marching with the coffin to embark on their vehicles or buses. It will take a few minutes. Thereafter, we'll proceed to the cemetery. At the cemetery, it will be as follows. At the gate, the entourage of the president will allow it to move to the left side of the soldiers that will be stationed there. Then other members of the public, including the ministers, they will move to the right. Don't worry, military police and traffic officials will be there. Then behind the gun carriage, it will only be the family and Chief of South African Defence Force. The rest, they'll go to different areas. Packing will be directed where to go there. Please take note, at the gravesite, they will be firing. Be cushioned, don't be shocked. It's just a small firing as part of military proceedings to give our last tribute to the deceased or to the family of Justice Mokgoro. So be aware, it's not a loud sound, but be aware of it, don't be shocked. Then other proceedings, it will be the handing over of a stone flag to the family by the president via our chief defense force and myself. Then upon the conclusion of the military aspects, then the chaplain will hand over to the family to continue with their own traditions at the gravesite. I thank you.
Peace and grace from God the Father and our Lord Jesus Christ be with you all. Amen. Allow me to acknowledge other expressions of faith in our midst. Melon tetle gore ke re ba tlhaping ke re lala ka ntho madi a tshologe. Yo neng a re adimile o boetse o tshotse mme go ba ko ina ja gagwe. The message is recorded in Psalm 10, verse 1, which reads thus in the name of the Lord. Why, O Lord, do you stand far off? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? The book of Psalms expresses worship, kobamelo. Throughout its many pages, Psalms encourages its readers to praise God for who he is and what he has done. The Psalms illuminate the greatness of our God, bogolo jwa bo modimo. Ke ka mokgwa o moopedisi a re bokangwa e mang. Ke kgosi ya kgalalelo. And the same God affirms his faithfulness to us in times of trouble, in times like this, and remind us of the absolute centrality of his word. The verse I have read has several exegetical ideas. However, I want us to concentrate on the fact that it is a common experience in the face of death to feel as if the very light of life has gone out of us. It is heavily embedded in the question that David, the author of this psalm, asks when he says, why, O Lord, do you stand far off? The text in perspective, it is undisputable fact that Barwa le Baradia Mokgoro's family, their hearts are melting with sorrow. Their eyes are running down with tears, whilst their very souls are troubled within them. Truly, they need a touch of the greatness of our great God. David shares the same sentiments in such a manner that when you go deeper into it, he epitomizes this God as a mother who happens to be a light unto the family, and when that light of life or the light of hope goes out, we undergo a bitter and a sour experience. And this was common experience for David. The psalmist had just been through an upset, and for him it had affected his feeling towards the Lord. David felt that God seemed too distant. For David, God seemed unaware of his trouble. This was a fairly common experience for David when you read go through many of the Psalms. And we surely share in the same experience. This feeling hits all age groups and types. And it most often manifests itself in depressive feelings. Selelo nako nngwe ga se kgone go tla, o metsa dikeledi. E kete o ka ikgagola, wa eletsa gore Modimo a dire sengwe se sa tshwaneng le se re leng fa ka sona. This experience causes us to lose perspective. And the account of Elijah in 1 Kings illustrates it well, beloved in the Lord. For he had known triumph, but now was emotionally and physically drained. He lost perspective and was ready to quit. When light goes out for reasons such as sorrow, pain, and death, what does it do to us? We lose perspective and get overly morbid and pessimistic. This experience can be more apparent than real. And Elisha in 2 Kings 6 is a good example, as the city was surrounded by a great company, and yet the young man was terrified, and death terrifies. Elisha could see the ever-present unseen host of the Lord. And many a times we do tend to look at the pain, concentrate on the pain. But I want to say to the Mokgoro family, ditsala le lesika, we need to find solace in knowing that God will surely wipe away your tears and comfort you. You need to remember that the unseen presence of the Lord is ever with us. And in Matthew 28, the last verse, where he promises them his presence or his perpetual presence, he says, behold, I am with you till the close of age. Modimo o tla tswelela go nna le lona, go le letobo, go le botlhoko, go le dikeledi, go le bohutsana, fela bodimo le bomodimo jwa gagwe ga bo kitla bo fetoga. This experience reminds us of what Christ suffered as it is illustrated in his life. He knew the sense of separation we know at death. He cried out loud to the Father in the midst of it. You can be sure he knows what it is like and can sense something of the agony he suffered. This should make us thankful for experience, as it causes us to appreciate Christ. In conclusion, Mokgoro family, when the light of hope go out, when things get bleak, break must come. When time of darkest night, hope's both dead, remember God through Jesus is able to reveal himself in your misery and in your pain. May the touch of the greatness of our great God serve as a means of lifting the veil of sorrow and drying the tears from your eyes, as well as calming your troubled souls. And the peace of the Lord that surpasses all understanding should keep your hearts and minds in Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
With my soul, with my soul, it is well, it is well with my soul.
The beloved congregation, respectively so, we will now start with the proceedings of the SANDF, South African National Defence Force, Ceremonial Guard of Honor. Allow me to call the names of pallbearers and bearers. The pallbearers are as follows: 94819281 PE, Colonel SS Nzunguzi; 91955096 PE, Colonel J. Potgieter; 82571951 PE, Colonel J.F. Skuman; 93465136 PE, Colonel R.M. Moropane; 95702189 MC, Captain South African Navy AMI Mokgoro; 98560493 MI, Captain South African Navy MP Silala; 85002277 PE, Colonel P. Ngakamba; 98022957 PE, Colonel T. Nkosi. The bearers are as follows: 94204666 PE, Master Warrant Officer M.E. Woegbart; 86743739 PE, Master Warrant Officer S.S. Magagula; 90073917 PE, Master Warrant Officer R.T. Alexander; 92728476 PE, Master Warrant Officer J.Z. Munisi; 94853751 PE, Master Warrant Officer D.T. Tlhageng; 95654653 PE, Master Warrant Officer K.S. Ndokweni; 91735795 PE, Master Warrant Officer L.B. Sitebe; 96851274 PE, Master Warrant Officer S.M. Mahungela, and the Warrant Officer in charge is 94997145 PE, Chief Warrant Officer M.Z. Mukhejani. The beloved congregation is humbly requested to rise and remain standing until the bearers and the pallbearers have taken their posts and started to do the right moves. Be blessed.